Myself, I'm Ratnabhushan, a friend, motivator, and guide to IAS aspirant, international motivational speaker, leadership trainer, CEO, coach, political strategist, and policy advisor. Welcome to ASG. ASG IAS believe in quality, commitment, and success. I see neither bravery nor sacrifice. I see neither bravery nor sacrifice in destroying life or property for offense or defense. This is the quote of Mahatma Gandhi from the book The Words of Gandhi, written by Richard Attenborough. So, the most important news of today, source the Hindu newspaper. Will environment regulations be weakened? Will environment regulation to be weakened? What are the key changes in the environment impact assessment notification compared to the past? The story so far. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change had published the draft Environment Impact Assessment EIA notification 2020 with the intention of replacing the existing EIA notification 2006 under Environment Protection Act 1986. The governments want to incorporate modification made to the regulation through amendments in the interim period. An EIA makes a scientific estimate of the likely impacts of the project, such as mine, irrigation, dam, industrial unit, or waste treatment plant. There is also a provision for public consultation in the rules, including a public hearing at which the local community and interested persons can give opinion and raise questions, objections based on the draft EIA report prepared by experts for the project. How does the draft EIA notification differ from the one now in force? Among the major departures from existing regulation is the removal of several activities from the purview of the public consultation. A list of projects has been included under category B2, expressly exempted from the requirement of EIA clause 13. The projects under this category include offshore and onshore oil, gas, and shale exploration, hydroelectric projects up to 25 megawatt, irrigation project between 2,000 and 10,000 hectares of the command area, small and medium mineral beneficiation units, small foundries involving furnace units, some categories of the re-rolling mills, small land, medium cement plants, small clinker grinding units, acid other than phosphoric or ammonia, sulfuric acid, micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs in dye and dye intermediary, bulk drugs, synthetic rubbers, medium-sized paints units, all inland underway project. Expansions or widening of highways between 25 km and 100 km with defined parameters, aerial ropeways in ecologically sensitive areas, and specified building constructions and area development project. The project in this list are under existing norms identified on the basis of screening by expert appraisal committees rather than being exempted through listing in the schedule. Also, coal and non-coal mineral prospecting and solar photovoltaic project don't need prior environmental clearance or permission in the new scheme. The subject of the contempt of the court. What is the rationale for this provision? Do judicial institutions need protection? Contempt of court as a concept that seeks to protect judicial institution from motivated attacks and unwarranted criticism, and as a legal mechanism to punish those who lower its authority, is back in the news in India. This follows the initiation of contempt proceeding by the Supreme Court of India on its own motion against activist Prashant Bhushan. How did the concept of contempt come into being? The concept of contempt of court is several centuries old in England. It is a common law principle that seeks to protect the judicial power of the king, initially exercised by himself and later by a panel of judges who acted in its name. Violation of the judge's order was considered an affront to the king himself. Over time, any kind of disobedience to judges or obstruction of the implementations of their directives or comments and action that showed disrespect towards them came to be punishable. What is the statutory basis for contempt of court? There were pre-independence laws of contempt in India. Besides the early high courts, the courts of some princely states also had such laws. When the constitution was adopted, contempt of court was made one of the restrictions on freedom of speech and expression. Separately, Article 129 of the Constitution conferred on the Supreme Court that the power to punish contempt of itself. Article 215 conferred a corresponding power on the High Courts. The Contempt of Courts Act 1971 gives statutory backing to the idea. What are the kinds of contempt of court? The law codifying contempt classifies it as civil and criminal. Civil contempt is fairly simple. It is committed when someone willfully disobeys a court order or willfully breaches an undertaking given to the court. Criminal contempt is more complex. It consists of three forms. A. Words, written or spoken, signs or action that scandalize, or tend to scandalize or lower or tends to lower the authority of any court. B. Prejudices or interferes with any judicial proceeding. And C. Interferes with the obstruct the administration of justice. Education and NEP. What has the draft National Education Policy 2020 proposed? What are the major challenges of this story? So far, the Union Cabinet approved a new National Education Policy on July 29th after 34 year of gap. The National Education Policy 2020 is meant to provide an overreaching vision and comprehensive framework for both school and higher education across the country. The new NEP approved by cabinet has not been presented in parliament. It is the first to be formulated by a Bharatiya Janata Party government and the first in 21st century. It is the only policy, not a law. Implementation of its proposal depends on further regulation by both the state and the center, as education is a concurrent subject. Education as a concurrent subject. Amar Singh, a man for all parties, dead. He had a knack for forging ties across parties. Rajya Sabha MP Amar Singh passed away in Singapore on Saturday after ailing for some time. He was under treatment at the hospital in Singapore for the last 7 months after having a suffering kidney failure in 2013. He is survived by his wife Pankaja Singh and daughter Disha and Drishti. Mr. Singh, 64, was born in Aligarh in 1956 and educated in Kolkata with an early political career in the West Bengal Congress. As a youth Congress member in 1980s, he came into the orbit of Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Veer Bahadur Singh. But it was a chance encounter with the Samajwadi Party leader Mulayam Singh Yadav in 1996 on the board, a plan that changed his fortunes. The SP had just been formed. Mr. Yadav was the defense minister in the Devgowda government in the era of the coalition parties, Mandal, Mandir and liberalizing economy. Mr. Singh's talent in forging friendship across the political spectrum found full play. He was soon made General Secretary of Samajwadi Party and also rewarded with Rajya Sabha berth in 1996. He also injected Bollywood glamour into the proceeding with his friendship with the superstar Amitabh Bachchan. The apogee of his career was in 2008 trust vote faced by the Manmohan Singh-led UPA government after it left the front. All the allies pulled out support ever in the Indo-US nuclear deal. The SP's 39 MPs were placed to support the government after the party had a change of heart over the nuclear deal. The scene in Parliament on the day of the voting in July 2008, however, was unprecedented, with the currency amounting to cross being displayed in the wall of the House and the BJP accusing the Congress and its allies of the trying to buy MPs while the government survived. Mr. Singh was implicated in a legal case on the matter and even served some time in jail, though he was not convicted in 2010. The rise of Mr. Yadav's son, Akhilesh, and the resentment of sections of the SP saw Mr. Singh give up all the party's posts in 2011. The only leader to leave him with was across MP and Jaya Prada, to whom he had been a mentor in her political career. He later formed his own political party with Ms. Jaya Prada and then joined the Rashtriya Lok Dal and losing the 2014 Lok Sabha election. Tilak made freedom struggle truly Indian, sage Amit Shah. He urges youth to study the freedom fighters' speeches. The Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Saturday said freedom fighter Bal Gangadhar Tilak was the one who made the freedom struggle started by the Congress meaningful and truly Indian. Mr. Shah was addressing the Indian Council of Cultural Relation, ICCR online conference on Tilak marking 100 years since his death on August 1st, 1920. He urged the youth to study Tilak's speeches and life for inspiration. Those who know the Congress history and their work will know this. If anyone made Tilak's freedom struggle Indian, it was Tilak, he said, citing his slogan, Swaraj is my birthright, I shall have it. Mr. Shah said the statement changed the freedom struggle, making the Congress freedom movement into a people's movement. Tilak fought for independence for one hand while campaigning against cow slaughter on the other. His influence was visible in the lives of Mahatma Gandhi, Veer Savarkar and Madan Mohan Malvi, he noted. Faith and dispute, the tale of the sacred town. The demolition of Babri Masjid and the movement for Ram Mandir turned his sleepy temple into the fulcrum of the Indian politics. The groundbreaking ceremony of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya on August 5th, after a decades-long legal dispute that concluded last year, would not only set off construction but also mark a new chapter in the history of this town. Located 130 km east of Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh capital Ayodhya, a town of great religious significance, gained national prominence in the past few decades, coinciding with the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and its intervened fortunes with the Bharatiya Janata Party. Religious tourism economy in the town, founded on the beliefs associated with the Ramayana, has lagged behind them in the other spiritually important cities in the state like Mathura, Prayagraj and the Varanasi. The proposed Ram temple promises to alter all that. Locals hope it would be augur a new wave of development and livelihood opportunities to cement the closure of an issue that has defined Ayodhya. Ayodhya's importance, more than just a site of the dispute about the birthplace of the Lord Ram, was a constant cipher of the shaping post-independent politics, said Mr. Pralay Kanungo, academic and author of the RSS Traced with Politics from the Hedgewar to Sudarshan. There was an interesting interlude in 1980s to 81 when there was a talk of the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi moving towards the Hindu politics of at least the Hindi heartland. He said plans to develop Ayodhya as a pilgrimage city termed the Ram Ki Purahi project was given to the go-ahead by her in the early 1980s. Mandal and Mandir. This trajectory was cut short due to the Mrs. Gandhi ultimately and violent death in 1984. Ayodhya itself was destined to be a epicenter of the two great ideas of 1990s politics in India. Mandal and Mandir made it was another political party altogether that would take the sleepy temple town and make it the fulcrum of the Indian politics, BJP. In the early 1980s, the newly formed BJP and its leadership came to the conclusion that to connect with the people, it needed an emotional issue. Even when the Australian Jan Sangh participated in the anti-cow slaughter movement in 1967, the movement itself was led by the Congress and there were no political dividends for the Jan Sangh, said R. Balashankar, the former editor of organization the RSS Mouthpiece and the former national convener of the BJP intellectual cell. The Ram Janmabhoomi movement was one such issue that had the potential and did in freedom transform the BJP from the cadre-based party into a one with the mass support. He said the fate of Ayodhya was sealed in the little known from the Palampur in the Himalaya Pradesh, where it is at a national executive meet in 1989. The BJP decided to politically back to demand by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad to recognize the disputed decided Babri Masjid, Ram Janmabhoomi, and the support litigation by Hindu outfits to build a Ram temple there. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. God bless Bharat.